welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today I'm going to be doing a bit of a watercolour card, and I'm going to be using a stamping technique with my stencils. This is the Colour Block Triangle stencil from Old to New. And I'm also going to be using this Inky Bouquet stamp set. So this is actually my mask here, but you can see I've got the stamp mounted on here. And we're going to be using that main floral. So I'm just going to bring in some scrap paper, and I've been doing the stenciling techniques Old to New class. I'll link to it below. And in that class was a technique that's new to me, which is stamping with stencils. So I thought I'd give it a try. I do quite a lot of stenciling, so it's quite nice to find a technique that is new. So I'm going to use my Old to New Arctic first. So I'm going to do a range of blues on here. So I'm just covering it with a bit of ink, and because I'm using a range of blues, I'm going to go from light to dark, and then it won't matter if I'm kind of like overlapping the inks a bit, because it won't ruin the ink pads. And now I'm going to go in with this Persian blue. I don't actually really need to cover the whole thing, because I'm only just going to use a smaller piece of cardstock. So here I've got a piece of Crest's Companion watercolour cardstock. This is the 300 GSM high quality smooth, and I've cut this to be 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 inches. So that's 1/8 of an inch smaller, a 5 1/2 by 4 1/4 card blank. So I'm just going to spray this with some water. This is just a Stampin' Up spritzer. I'm not actually sure whether they still run them, but you can find spritzers lots of places. And then I'm just going to take this off, and I'm just going to kind of stamp it onto my watercolour paper. And then I'm just going to use my scrap paper just to smooth that over. And then I've got this really subtle inky background. So then I've got another piece of the same watercolour cardstock, and I'm just going to ink up that main floral stamp with Stays On Ink. And that's not turned out as well as I'd like, so I'm just going to stamp that again. That's much better this time. I'm really happy with that, so I'm going to watercolour this image. So then I've got my Old to New watercolour palette. This is their 12 pan. And I'm just going to put it out there and say this is not a watercolouring tutorial. I've used this palette once before, and that's the only other time that I've watercoloured, I think probably since school. But I'm all about let's give it a go. So I'm just going to slap on some colour and see where we come to. So I'm just adding a bit of water to some of this dried bit. This is actually this colour here. And I'm going to do these leaves. And then I've just got some towel on hand so that I can rub it off and clean my brush on here between different colours. And I'm going to use some of this green next. So now I'm going to add some water to this, which is this colour here. And I'm actually going to do a bit which is really watered down just here. And then I'm going to use some of this red for the rose. And again, I'm going to create a drop that's like got less pigment in it. And then I'm going to create a bit of this purple here. Pocket that there. And then a bit of this blue. And I want these to be quite light colours where they're actually quite quite bold at the moment, so I'm just going to create a really watery bit over here. And mix in a tiny bit of this purple just to add a little bit of extra depth. Then while that just dries, I'm going to use this birthday greeting stamp set from Altenew, which if you've been watching a lot of my videos recently, I've used this a whole load because it's just so useful, and I make a lot of birthday cards. They're the ones I use the most. So I'm going to use this kind of scripty happy birthday because I think it kind of goes nice with the style of my card. So I'm just going to stamp that onto a scrap piece of the Neenah Solar White, and I'm just using my Altenew Jet Black ink to stamp that. And you can see I've got a little bit of a hair mark there, so I'm just going to stamp that again. So then I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut out this happy birthday. So then I've got the coordinating Inky Bouquet Die. So I'm going to pop it together. You can see, so this is a 5.5 by 4.25 inch card blank. And you can see I dropped my stamp on it, but that's fine because we're going to cover it up with this front bit. And I'm using a tape runner to stick it down because my watercolour card is slightly warped from getting wet, and so this will help make sure that it doesn't kind of move and pop up out of place. And then I'm going to use some double-sided foam pads to pop that up. And then I'm going to cut a bit off to pop the sentiment up as well. And then I just want to double it up under the happy because that bit isn't going to be on top of the flower, so it needs an extra bit. And then I've just got a few little white gemstones. These are old ones from Stampin' Up. And I'm just going to pop those just around, just to add a little bit of sparkle. So there's my finished project. Let me know in the comments how you feel about watercolouring. Is it something you've not tried before? Is it something you love doing? I'd love to know what your thoughts are. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's project. If you did, I'd appreciate clicking like below. And you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future projects. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also send you notifications when I have a new YouTube video available. All of the products that I've used for today's card are listed in the description below, and you can also find a picture version of the product list over on my blog, so that might make it easier to find whatever it is that you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.